Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. And today we're going to be playing a traditional draft, a best of three draft of Aetherdrift. If you haven't heard yet, there are achievements on Arena now, and one of them is best of three exclusive. You have to win a match after losing the first game. So I'm going to play a little bit of best of three drafts because I'm a little bit of a achievement hunter myself. So without further ado, let's just get into the draft here. We've got a really nice opening pack. The Tarian World Tyrant and Stock Up are just generically good cards. This is just a massive creature for 5 for any green deck, so that could be a really high pick, as is the Stock Up, which digs pretty far. But the Crypt Caller Chariot has some really nice combos that are fun to build around. It is a lot less consistent than the other two cards, though, so I think I'm actually going to push towards those. I'm going to grab the Stock Up here. We have been playing a lot of green decks recently, so for variety's sake, take the blue card over the green card, and we're taking it over the Crypt Caller Chariot because, again, that's a card you really, really heavily have to build around. The cards have to be open for that card to work good. You've got to have nobody in the draft pod competing for all of the cycling cards for like a black-red sort of cycling deck for that to be good. So I think it's a little bit too narrow to just slam dunk immediately when there are other really powerful uncommons in the pack. So pick 2, we got a mediocre blue-black vehicle here. We got a really nice cheap removal spell out of red with the Lightning Strike. That's probably the pick here. Similar to our first pack, it's going to be a little bit of a more boring pick here, but a much more likely to get played card here. More consistently good card over anything specifically spicy that might play really well like the Hell Ride. Yeah, we just take that really efficient removal. When it shows up, grab a Lightning Strike, move on to pick 3. Okay, pick 3, we see a Sky Serpent Seeker that could push us towards green. One of the things I don't like about this card is that we did pass a really good green card pack 1, but the way that drafts work is we pass left, then right, then left, so we'll only get cut off of green in one pack if the player directly to our left hopped onto green. As long as we keep getting past green cards this pack, that means that green should be open again in pack 3, and we can be a really nice green-blue deck. So the Sky Serpent Seeker, just a really, really nice 3-for-1 card. If you exhaust it, you get to put 2 lands into play off the top of your library. That's 3 cards worth of value because this 1/1 Flying Death Touch is a card of value, plus those 2 land cards that you're drawing in addition. So this card is really nice. I've played against it a lot. I have not managed to play with it at all yet. So we'll take that here. We're 1 card deep towards green, 1 card deep towards red, and whichever color ends up being more open can be the direction that we go here. For pick 4, we've got not much. There's a Swiftwater Cliffs. If we go blue-red, that'll be really nice. Boom Scholar's like an okay Gruul card. I do like Pact Doll Terror a ton. I've been very, very impressed by this in very artifact-heavy decks, so taking that on a speculation towards blue-black I don't think would be the worst ever. Because no matter what we take, we're one card deep into every different, like, 2-color pair, right? 2 cards towards blue-red, 2 cards towards blue-green, 2 cards towards blue-black. If I take this, we're 2 cards towards red-green. We've got a bunch of different directions to go, whichever card we take here. Unstoppable Plan is just useless in drafts. I would disregard that. So, I mean, I guess Swiftwater Cliffs is the only card that we could take to get even deeper into a specific color pair, but it's early enough I don't mind just staying super open for now. And pick 5, pretty happy to have been so heavy on blue so far as the probable main color here, because now we get to take Spike Shell Harrier, which will play excellently in blue-red, blue-green, or blue-black. Just a really nice tempo bounce play. We'll grab that blue shell and demolish whoever's in first place. Pick number 6 now. Some more really nice artifact cards. Nimble Thopterist, Huldrifter, and Memory Guardian are all cards that put an artifact creature on the board for Pact Doll Terror. I prefer Nimble Thopterist. I really just like cluttering up the board with 2 creatures off of 1 spell, more than I like drawing a couple cards or having a potentially pretty cheap flyer. I think Thopterist is just the most consistent of these cards. I mean, that said, there are enough board stalls that maybe the chunkier flyer's also worth it. I'm still going Thopterist here, but this is a super board stall heavy format, so maybe the more I play the format, the more I'm actually just going to like flyers and unblockable creatures and stuff. I don't know if this is just my experience, but the past like 2 or 3 drafts and sealeds, I've been in so many like 20 to 30 minute long games where we've gotten down to like 10 cards in library. The board stalls are getting a little egregious here. So having some ways to push through the board stalls and get extra evasive damage in could be really good. Speaking of really good, we've got a Grim Bauble here, a really efficient black removal spell that plays particularly well in the blue-black deck because it is that very important artifact card type for all of that synergy. Pick number 8. We could take a Bloodfell Caves here. That helps us splash in a Lightning Strike if we somehow do not get enough removal, but in blue-black we should probably get plenty. I just don't think any of these are super good in the blue-black archetype. There's no artifacts here, obviously. We just have decent pieces of interaction like a discard spell, a counter spell, or a bounce spell. I don't think those are massively high picks though, so I will speculate on Bloodfell Caves. For pick 9, we got another great artifact creature, the Wreckage Wickerfolk, 2 mana for a 1/3 flyer, and it surveils 2. Again, flyers playing very well in this format. Surveil also works quite nicely. There's a lot of graveyard synergy. And the Wickerfolk Indomitable, while it is cute, you can potentially keep recasting it. I don't think there's a ton of really good expendable cards to sack for it in blue-black. We can try to get a bunch of Grim Baubles to sack, but this isn't like a treasure-producing color or anything like that. So pick 10, Scoured Barrens, very similarly to our Bloodfell Caves pick, looks pretty decent here. Although there is a flyer, and I have been saying flyers are pretty solid, but it's basically just a 3 mana 2/2 flyer, no extra ability. Technically it might draw you a card later, but I have not been impressed by Glitch Ghost Surveyor. I have been growing more and more impressed by the Engine Rat, though, just as a card that's really nice for board stalls. Plus, green, one of the best colors in the format, is really good because it has so many just gigantic creatures at common. So having a little Death Toucher against those is decent. And then, of course, as I've been saying, once you get into a board stall position, that's a great mana sink to try to end the game over time, just constantly pinging your opponent. Another white piece of fixing here. Although, again, Oil Gorger flying, not bad. But if I can get some artifact flying creatures, that'll be better here. Pack 2, pick 1. Another Nimblethopterist, another Grim Bauble. Those are both really nice synergy pieces for this deck. I feel the Bauble's probably a little better. Again, adding to our synergy and our removal. Gastal Raider I've liked as well. A 2-for-1, you play it, rip your opponent's removal out of their hand. The only issue with Gastal Raid is it's a pretty bad draw in the late game unless you're a dedicated Start Your Engines deck, and I don't think we're going to be. If you draw this in the late game and you haven't gotten to max speed yet, it's just going to be a 3 mana 2/1. The odds of it making them discard a card at that point is really low. So I'm happy to just take the more consistent Grim Bauble. Pack 2, pick 2, Transit Mage could be decent in this archetype. Finds a 4 or 5 mana value artifact when we play it, so that's always going to get us a Spike Shell Harrier or a Pact Stall Terror. If this draws any card when you play it, it's a solid play. 3 mana 2/2 draw a card, and the fact that it draws something that you can curve into with this is really nice. With this in your hand, you know you have your 3-drop and your 4-drop, so you know you've got a solid mana curve from turn 3 onward. I feel like that is good enough to take over the Flood the Engine. Pack 2, pick 3. I think this pack is weak enough here to take the Crypt Caller Chariot this time. We are in a color pair that has some cyclers. Obviously, blue has a lot of cycling cards in the format, as well as ways to draw a card and discard a card. We don't have like any synergy for this card yet, but the other 2 cards that are competing on color are just pretty weak. Not the most exciting, so I'll speculate on Crypt Caller Chariot now. Pick number 4, second Pact Doll Terror. Just stacking up duplicates of this card can ping for a lot of damage. Super good in the board stalls. Sorry, Nimblethopterist. Pick number 5. Here's a cycling creature. It's not going to be the greatest top-end card in our deck, but it gives us some synergy with Crypt Caller Chariot, which is going to be important to have if we want to try to get that card in the deck. Pick 6. The filler 3 mana 3/2 or the filler little counterspell. I'll take the little counterspell here. Counter some top end creatures from the big green decks and stuff. Trip Up is a fine piece of interaction we can also cycle, but there's also Wreck Remover, just a filler artifact creature. It's got the important artifact card type, and of course we can cycle it. I think I prefer Trip Up here. We've already got 3 better 4 mana artifacts, I think. The Chariot, the Double Terror. Pick 8, Hold Drifter. Somewhat filler, but going to be fine in this deck. Wield a Nimble Thopterist. Pretty happy to see that. That's nice in the archetype. Yeah, I forgot about the Thopterist as well. We are really clumped up at the 4. Definitely don't want the filler 4-mana artifact creature. If we can avoid that. I think we actually are playing a Guidelight Optimizer in this deck. I don't remember when I threw that in the sideboard, but it's probably okay in here. We have a lot of artifacts. It's a Flood the Engine for more removal. Love to see that. Bloodfell Caves, play a Lightning Strike. Might not be horrible, but I think I'd rather just take on-color removal. The biggest issue with Flood the Engine in this format is that it is enchantment-based removal, and this is a format with enough artifacts that naturalize effects, things that blow up artifacts or enchantments, are pretty main deckable, so you might randomly get this blown up by some piece of main deck artifact enchantment removal from your opponent. All the Nimble Thopterists in the world. I really don't want to run Stall Out just because it has cycling, which is making the Crypt Collar Chariot potentially one of the first cuts. I'm running like 2 cycling cards right now. Again, I've been completely demolished by this card because I have seen it from an opponent that had the red card that lets them discard a card, draw a card every turn, so they're just guaranteed to get the zombies every single turn. I don't know if blue has a comparable card in this format, but if it does, I'll try to draft it if we see it. What we do see here, though, is probably the biggest reason to be in blue-black, so I don't think I can afford to attempt to wheel this because this is just going to be the strongest card in our deck, period. We've got a really high artifact count in this archetype, so this is going to spit out 2 Flying Thopters and drain our opponent for a bunch of life, especially when we have a Pact Doll Terror or 2 on the board. We even drain them for life off of each of those Thopter creatures individually. Really, really nice way to end the game. Again, draining life from our opponent and giving us flying threats. It's very good at breaking through during board stalls, which is another thing that can happen a lot in this format. Pack 3, pick 2, we can take another Flood the Engine or a first Gastel Raider. For mana curve purposes, I really wouldn't mind the Raider, plus it is a 2-for-1 most of the time early in the game, so I do like it a lot for that. We're a little bit low on Great Removal. I have 2 Bauble, Flood the Engine, and then it's like a counterspell and a bounce spell. So I could see the argument for Flood the Engine, but I'm going to take the Gastel Raider here. I just like me some 2-for-1 kind of cards. All right, now I can take the removal. Spin Out is even better than Flood the Engine, so we will definitely run that. Pick 4, there's another Trip Up. That mediocre bounce removal spell, but it also cycles. And there's nothing else to play there. That helps get the Crypt Collar Chariot if we just end up with like 4 trip-ups or something. Like, it does have a mediocre vehicle no matter what. Even if we never cycle anything, we've got a Crew 2 5/5. So, probably doesn't take an absurd amount of cycling to actually run this. Pick 5. Keen Buccaneer gives us the draw card, discard a card to trigger that. Trip Up gives us the cycling, or Locust Spray gives us the cycling. I think I'm still really in the market for more creatures, especially somewhat cheaper on the curve, so I'm going to go for the Keen Buccaneer. I think all 3 of these are pretty filler for this deck, but they're all synergy pieces for the Crypt Collar Chariot, which is kind of exciting. We got another Gastel Raider here, or the Siphon Fuel. But now I have double Trip Up, Spin Out, Flood the Engine, double Bauble, Spectral Interference. I think I can take the Raider. Cheap flying creature here. We have very few 2-mana cards, so get that cheap flyer. That doubles as a late game flyer that's really beefy. Ooh, we got another Grim Bauble. Let's go. Sure. If I had taken another dual land, a Broadside Barrage Splash would be kind of exciting in here. But Grim Bauble it'll be. Midnight Mangler versus Mutant Surveyor. Honestly, I really don't care much about raising my speed with a card like Mutant Surveyor, so I'd rather just take the cheaper card that actually blocks. Plus, it is an artifact. I mean, the 3-mana card blocks too, but it's obviously much more designed to be trying to push damage with the Start Your Engines ability. Pick 10, Ripclaw Wrangler. I don't think I'm playing this card. This is just taking up a card slot that we would just be putting Cryptcaller Chariot in. Yeah, I'd rather try to just high roll on Chariot than play that other 4-mana vehicle. Well, we gotta cut all these duels because we're just blue-black. Probably cutting the Gravestalker. Got the Flood the Engine back. Wow. We might have to cut a little bit of removal. Maybe we just have to cut the whole Chariot package. Because some of our more mediocre, like, tempo sort of removal, like Trip Up, is part of the Chariot package. That would be a quick way to cut 4 or 5 cards, would just be drop the whole Chariot package. Make things a lot simpler for us here in the deck building. Yeah, I'm gonna cut these 4. I just think it's a little inconsistent, and we can focus up on having the rest of our deck all synergize really well together. Or just be really high power level up front, just raw power level through the roof. It's a nice deck. And this is best of 3, so if there's some really weird matchup where we think that the super inconsistent kind of cycling nonsense might be the way to go, we can side it in, play around with that. Alright, I think I have enough hard removal for resolved threats to cut the counterspell here. Especially because we do have a lot of like sorcery speed threats to just be jamming out. There's not a lot of flash cards or instant speed cards to help us hold up a counterspell. I guess exhaust abilities is where you can really get away with that. In Archetype where you have a bunch of those, you hold up the exhaust ability. If they don't cast anything you need to counter, then you just activate the exhaust ability instead. It can be pretty good synergy, but this deck does not have that synergy. We're just slamming down a bunch of sorcery speed creatures. Sorcery speed plays like Haunt the Network as well. Sorcery speed removal like Flood the Engine. Sorcery speed card draw. Yeah, Spectral Interference looks like a cut here. And then I could probably just drop a land, honestly. I mean, like maybe Buccaneer is our least synergistic creature. I think it's the only creature except for the Engineer and the Engine Wrath that does not do something with artifacts. But the Engineer is a nice efficient flyer, and the Engine Rat is a good mana sink in the late game. But again, I think this deck can cut a land here. The curve is really not high. We just need to get to 3 really consistently. Hopefully 4 after that, but we have enough, hopefully, with all the 3 mana removal to buy the time to get that 4th mana. If we miss for a second. 14 blue cards, 11 black. I do have a double black card. I don't have any double blue cards until 5 mana, so I'm just going to run a 50-50 split at 8-8. 8 islands, 8 swamps. We will call it a deck there, hop into the gameplay, and see how it does. Here we are for game 1 of round 1 on the play. Yeah, happy I cut a land here. That's going to be a forced mulligan down to 6. This is also pretty bad. It's a 6-card hand. Don't do anything till turn 4. It's going to be a Nimblethopterist. Unless we can hit the black mana. We've got 8 sources. The next 32 cards. 33 cards. I feel like I have to mold a 5, honestly. The set's a little bit slower, but I still just don't think you can rely on waiting till turn 4 to do anything. Sand's gotta get lucky and hit that black source. Ooh, baby. Alright. I've got the early game plays this time, but this is going to be a 5-card monocolored hand to start off today's draft. That's a bit of an omen. Bit of a bad omen, but if we could win this game, that would be an insanely good omen. So let's try our best, shall we? We are playing against a blue deck. It is a blue-black mirror match. They've got a diversion unit there. Let's go ahead and Gastel Raider our opponents and see exactly what's going on in their hand. Opponent hits us with the GG. There's a Haunt the Network, a Stock Up, a Trip Up, and a Pact Altair. So it's a mirror match, but they had a really good opener, and we had a super bad Mold of 5. Oh, man. Yeah, Pact Altair, Haunt the Network are both horrible for us. The Stock Up could just find some really good gas, though. I think I have to just get the Haunt the Network here. Alright, you're muted. kind of like being able to see their side of the board, so it's going to be nice to be able to see where those emotes are popping out. I'm all for throwing out a spicy emote, but the spam is just not worth having emotes on. Alright. Opponent is down to 17, our speed goes up. There's the Packthal Terror. We find the blue source on that. And now their hand is basically completely unknown to us. But they're up 4 cards. 2 of which they dug for off of the stock up. Second Packthal Terror is pretty good. Thopterist is not horrible. We've got a flyer here. They can trip up the flyer, but we still get to keep the 3/2 body at least. Winter Cursed Rider. So they've also got a Winter in their deck. So now all of their artifacts have a ward cost of 2 life to target them, and can give all non-artifact creatures -X/-X by exiling some artifacts from their graveyard. Yeah, that is quite powerful. At this point, we're just playing to get more information on their deck for future games. This is very much not looking like a game we're actively trying to win from here, as that is getting increasingly less likely as time goes on. Maximum speed. We've got the Menace now. Got the Grim Bauble to shoot the Winter. I guess the Raider is actually pretty fine in this deck, right? Because we have all the Packthal Terror and Haunt the Network style life drain to help out with the speed. It certainly helps out our double Gastel Raider. Opponent has dropped their own Flood the Engines. I could Grim Bauble during my upkeep, so that if there's immediately a land on top, I'm ditching it. But we only have 11 lands out of 29, so the coin flip is weighted much more likely to draw a non-land card, and out of those non-land cards, we have several really good, like 4 and 5 mana cards, 3, 4, and 5 mana cards that I wouldn't be able to cast if I spent the 3 to Surveil, so I don't think I'm doing that. I think I'm just going to draw naturally and then Surveil later if it is another land. Okay, blue source is not the end of the world. We do have double blue cards in this deck, so we will get that down for if we hit like a Hole Drifter or something. Cycle a trip up, sure. They're down to 11. Go to 10, so we're at 10, they're at 11. Haunt the Network. They've got 2 copies out of their pod. It's pretty brutal. Grim Bauble. What are they doing now? Land. Okay. Grim Bauble activate. Find a spin out. That is just not going to be good enough here. I've only got the 1 flyer to block the 2 1/1 flyers. I feel like I still have to keep it here. I'm going to have to spin out a Packthal Terror and find a way to deal with the other flyer within 2 turns. Good grief. I thought Dimir was open in our pod. Curse Cloth Wrappings. Another bomb rare here. They can use that to immediately recast their other one, the Winter. Yep. And I missed my opportunity to spin out. I forgot that Winter gives everything
Together,
ward.
we are unstoppable.
So that's my bad. I was going to see what they Curse Cloth Wrappings first to spin out in response to that. I was okay with taking the 1 Pact All Terror damage, but the fact that everything has a ward of 2 life now means I can't spin out at all now. I think it really doesn't matter. We were losing this game regardless, but we could have had another turn and maybe seen a little bit more information from our opponent. All right, well, that was a miserable game in every single facet for us. Just a super unlucky start there and a self-explanatory loss. I'm pretty happy with how long we managed to fight it out there, considering the multi-5 mono-colored hand, plus our opponent dropping multiple rares down on us. So, really, really bad start, but a fine omen for the rest of the match. I think their deck is basically the mirror match, except they actually got a couple bomb rares, and they had 2 Haunt the Networks. Yeah, it's just the mirror match, but they were in a more open blue-black draft pod, or a slightly better blue-black draft pod in terms of what was opened. So, when I say it's a good omen for future games, I don't mean we're likely to win the match. I just mean the fact that we managed to keep it together that long in a game that we were that far behind from the start means that we do have a shot in the future games. But I do think they're favored. I think they have the stronger deck for sure. I don't think anything in our sideboard really helps much against all their stuff. I mean, their strongest card is Sorcery Bomb, and we don't have any interaction for sorceries. This only counters artifacts or creatures. We can still play the interference here over something else and just try to really deal with every Pact Doll terror that they ever try to play. In which case, we get to run this over maybe like a 3rd Thopterist or something. That is kind of a lot of like 4 drops here. Maybe the Buccaneer again, just being a pretty filler card. Although a 3/4 Vigilance looks fine. The Baubles still look fine. We can kill Optimizers, we can kill Winter, we can kill Diversion units. So I don't really want to cut any of those. Yeah, this counterspell can also counter Curse Cloth Wrappings, which is nice. So I think I will be running that. And we'll go ahead and play it over. I mean, Engine Rat doesn't even look super great in this archetype because they got a lot of 2/1s and 1/1s and stuff, so maybe Engine Rat could be the cut, actually. Although Engine Rat can trade into a Pact All Terror, too. And there's a lot of options to do this. I could cut the Mangler as well. I'll cut the Mangler. We'll do that. 0-1 heading into Game 2, but on the bright side, if we want to get the achievement for winning a round of best of 3 after losing the first game, we got the correct start to do that. We lost the first game. Oh, Arena have mercy. That's obviously a slam keep. We're down to a 6-card hand this time. And let's see, there's nothing to cast off the Optimizer. I could still curve out with it, right? Go Rat, Optimizer into the Thopter and just hold on to a Bauble here. I don't mind holding on to Spectral Interference in this matchup, though. The problem is, what do I get out of this hand for it? Like, this would be a great 7, but what's the cut down to 6? I feel like the long game matters more than quick aggro tempo, so I'm going to cut the Optimizer out of here and play towards the long game of interfering one of their cards, and I realize that it unmutes after 1 game in best of 3, so we're going to remute. Slam down to 19. Keen Buccaneer. That is not horrible, and they did not have any premium creature or artifact plays on 3 mana. 4 mana was where they did the really scary stuff, so I'm slamming down the Buccaneer here and then holding up Interference for the 4-drop instead. So they cycle the tune-up. There's the stock up. Super, super good card, especially when you're a really bomb-heavy deck, or a deck that relies on really specific cards, like Haunt the Interference or whatever it's called, the thing that makes 2/1/1 Thopters and drains your opponent for life equal to your artifact. That is a bomb in this archetype. That's a bomb in our deck, a bomb in their deck, and being able to dig 5 cards deep towards it, especially when you have 2 copies of it, is very, very powerful. Okay, this is awkward, because now I do have the 4 mana to just play Thopterist here. That would be letting them resolve 1 4-drop, like 1 Pact Doll Terror. But then I've got a really impressive board state, so I'm going to do it. I mean, Cursed Cloth Wrappings is just not a problem at all if they resolve that right now. So the worst that can happen here really is Pact Doll Terror. And there it is. Alright, we can stop the next one pretty easily. Could actually stop this one with a Grimbauble too, which could be very nice. Okay, we're going to Grimbauble this one then. Which would mean not holding up interference if I don't top deck something to discard. I did top deck something to discard. We'll ditch a land. Cool. Bobble that. Got quite the board here. If they tap out for an artifact or creature, we've got a really solid shot here. Even with an empty board, the Haunt the Network would be kind of bad for us here. Skystreak Engineer. We'll counter that. Keep the board clear. Again, from what we've seen of their deck, we haven't seen any 3-mana creatures, so the follow-up play would be pretty equivalently strong to the Engineer. Okay, Bobble the Thopterist, sure. But yeah, the follow-up line would just be like another 2-mana creature. Or the cheap removal like that. Okay. Slam the team, drop Pact Doll Terror. Down to 8. Again, not cracking Bobble because we have 4 and 5 mana draws in our deck that are really strong. There's another Pact Doll Terror. Now we definitely do crack the Bobble during their end step. Although I can actually use Engine Rat as well to do the life drain instead. That's probably actually better. So we hit for 4. Life drain for 2. Gets them to 3 life here. Okay, that's bad, but they're still down to 3 life here. So if we can ping for 1 more damage, we get there. Unless they gain some life here. There's the stock up. Digging for some Haunt the Networks, I'm guessing. Mana number 4. No artifact plays, please. Do not gain any life. Engine Rat doesn't gain any life. They move to the end step. We'll shoot for 2. They're down to 3. Poke in the sky and a shoot for 2 would be lethal. They crack the Bobble, they're tapped out. That's the poke in the sky. And that's the shoot for 2. Huge, huge work from Engine Rat there. And we are 1-1 heading into game number 3. I really liked the Spectral Interference addition, and I do feel like the Midnight Mangler's really awkward in this matchup because it's really only good at blocking, and their main, most important creatures are 3/4s. So a 3/3 to block the 3/4s just doesn't look super good. They did have 2/1s, the Guidelight Optimizers that tap for mana, but I also was pretty impressed by the Keen Buccaneer there. Again, the 3/4 stat line being pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with the changes we made to the deck here. Now we are going to be on the draw, which could change things a little bit. We now know we're very likely to be on the defensive, where the spectral interference gets a little bit worse, and maybe like trip up could be important, but I feel like trip up also gets worse on the defensive. It's better at like just getting a blocker out of the way and getting in there. Yeah, I feel like Thopterdist is great on the defense, Pact Altair great on the defense. All this removal. I really feel like just running it back here. The biggest question is some trip ups, maybe. Playing around here. Yeah, no, I'm gonna run it back. Let's get back in there for game number 3, the final game of round 1. Man. I mean, as I said before, I do think that we are outclassed a bit in card quality in our decks here. I think they have the stronger deck, so it's rough. We got a mulligan every game. But that's Magic. I don't think they mulliganed in any game either. Ooh. Mono black opener, maybe? Ooh. Do we get to punish them for the greedy keep here? Stock up land. Yep. Oh yeah, this hand goes land here, I think. Land Harrier is really tempting. Really tempting. Because if I miss a land drop, I can just go Thopterus 2 turns in a row. Yeah, I'm gonna go Land Harrier. I feel like that's gonna still be pretty fine here. 4th Swamp Pact Terror. Well, they do have the Pact Terror. There's a Grim Bauble for us. Send in the Terror. Oh, 1-for-1 trade here, sure. Thopterus into Terror. Okay. Thopterus into Overdrive works too. Wreckage Wicker Folk. Yep. That does trigger. Okay. There's the Flood the Engine for the Terror. Take 1 damage next turn. Shut off its ability. Why doesn't it permanently mute? They find the island, so they probably have like double Haunt the Network or more terrors in hand if they kept a mono black hand. Okay. Nimble Thopterist. I mean, Pact Altair is so important for that deck, we have to try to get it off the board. Got back on track 2. My lord. They have the Curse Cloth Wrappings and back on trap to reanimate the Pact Altairers. This deck is just nasty over there. They have all spells in hand. They haven't played a land for a couple turns. There's the stock up. I'm just looking at the mirror. They're me, but better. They found duplicates of all the strongest cards in our deck, and bomb rares like Winter. Ay, ay, ay. No artifacts in their grave. So if we just play some blockers here, I've got some blockers. And I want to clump up the board pre-Haunt the Network to maximize life gain. Ooh, I want to Pact Altair pre-Haunt the Network as well. I think I'm more likely to need to like spin out next turn than Doll just yet, right? So I can go like Wicker Folk Buccaneer. Next turn Harrier or spin out. Then I go doll, then I go haunt the network after the doll. Yeah, I think I need doll, like after I'm fully stable. I need the option of spinning out while things are sketchy. Possession Engine 2? Oh, why is this my life right now? This is wild. I mean, I can spin out the Possession Engine, but if I do that, they can crew in response with the Buccaneer, and it won't be untapped on blocks anyway. I mean, they crew it with Wickerfolk plus Buccaneer, but still. Harrier cost me 2 life to target anything. If I do Harrier the engine, pay 2 life, they can then crew the engine with Buccaneer, replay engine during their turn, taking Harrier, give me back a tapped Buccaneer. Or let me keep a tapped Buccaneer, and then just still slam with Winter, right? So I have to... I mean, I have to... I don't know if I spin out Winter or I spin out the engine. They're both really bad for me. But I can haunt the network, drain 4, have some 1/1 flyers to block Winter, but then getting slammed by the 5/5 here. I definitely can't Hull Drifter. I can pick up my Buccaneer. And they don't have an engine recast. And I can double block the engine if they attack with it. This line preys on them not having removal in hand. But I really don't have much of an option now. But you just really play for the best outcome, which is them not having removal in hand. My god, they don't have removal, but they have Haunt the Network. And we're at 4. We go to 3 here because we have to double block engine and take 1 from Wickerfolk. Ooh, no attack with Wickerfolk. We take those. They kill the flyer and play another flyer. Oh. Magic the Gathering, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely every possible facet of this game was rigged against us. Constant mulligans. Opponent has like 4 bomb rares in their deck and multiple copies of all of our best cards. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there are some next level Einstein plays that can win this match, but I do not think so. I mean, I guess we're still in it if their hand is land, land. I thought we were like dead on board, I'm gonna be honest. But I guess we're at 3 against just a Wickerfolk now. Well, they have exactly enough for the interference. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. There's no point in casting it there because then they just pay the 4. The only reason it would be relevant to tap them out of the other 4 is if they had another spell to play, and if they have another spell to play, I can interference and actually get it countered. I don't think I can afford to attack here, then I'm dead to any removal. the Cursed Cloth Wrappings has arrived. They drop a Keen Buccaneer. I have to optimize her. I mean, I have to play an artifact. I guess I can Hull Drifter. No, I can't. I need 3 blockers up. If I play Hull Drifter, I go to 2, but then they can attack with everybody. So I can't afford to block Wicker Folk. That's the only one small enough to not die to. So no matter what, I can't block Wicker Folk this turn anyway. So it's Optimizer Buccaneer. And then Hull Drifter next turn. Or just Optimizer hold up Interference, but Interference can't counter Embalm abilities anyway. Man. And I feel like their best play is going to be Embalm the Flyer and then exhaust it. Okay, well, they got the Drain, so we're dead. Top deck an artifact will do that to you with Packed All Terror. Well, there's nowhere to go but up from here. Our opponent was in Magical Christmas Dream World Draft Pod. Double Stock Up, double Haunt the Network, Winter, Possession Engine, Curse Cloth Wrappings, triple Packed All Terror. Most insanely open blue-black deck I have ever seen in this format. And we still went 1-2. We still got a win in this round when we had to mulligan every game as well. I will take that as a solid omen for future matches, even if we did not quite grab the bag on this one. That is 1-2, an 0-1 start heading into round 2. All right, here we are on the play for game 1 of round 2. We are in a fresh new round here. We got a solid opening hand right off the bat. No mulligans, no worries. Let's see what our opponent is on here. Island to start us off. Could be another mirror match, we'll see. Don't know the secondary color yet. Blue-white this time around. Blue-white is another very artifact-heavy deck, but it has more kind of affinity for artifact stuff, creatures with power equal to the number of artifacts, rather than life drain for the artifacts like blue-black does. So we're going to play the Gastel Raider here and see exactly what they're playing around here. There's also a blue-white tune-up deck that's pretty fun, where they can cycle something like Detention Chariot and then spend 4 mana to reanimate it as a 6/6 creature, and that's always pretty deadly. So they have a Trip Up for a bounce removal spell and Collision Course for just straight up destroy an artifact removal. This can also kill smaller creatures as long as they have creatures of their own on board. I feel like I'm going to let them keep the less efficient removal spell. Even though the Collision Course only blows up artifacts right now, we have a lot of really good artifact threats in this deck, and as soon as they play just one creature, it can also blow up either of our 1 toughness cards. So they did decide to cycle the Trip Up anyway, so I'm really happy with our choice of discard. We're going to attack in for... I choose to cast Thopterist or not, just in case they drew some weird flash creature we need to spin out, but they didn't, so here's Thopterist. Really solid game for us so far. Looks like our opponent's not going to have any plays till turn 4 with that Thopterist. Yep. As soon as I ping our opponent for just 1 more life, we've got a really good attack with the Gastel Raider. I can Spike Shell Harrier. The token if I want to kill it forever. But hitting the Thopterist, making them recast that is also not horrible. I feel like I'm just hitting the token, though. Still. Attack with everybody but the Raider, because Raider's basically guaranteed to be the Menacer here. You know, I probably shouldn't have attacked with Engine Rat either. I feel like Engine Rat's ability is going to be really relevant this game, considering that we have 6 mana and only one other spell. We might just start making them lose 2 life every turn now. Start really gunning for that Engine Rat victory again. Guide Light Synergist has arrived, but it's the only artifact on their board, so just a 1/4 flyer. We've got pretty good attacks into that. I could still spin out if I want. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage with or without the spin out. I think I'm just jamming everybody here. And they can just eat a 1/1 and take a million. They're at 5. We put them to 3 with Engine Rat's ability, or we spin out during their turn, depending on what they play. Untap Bauble Kill with the menace damage. Camera Launcher. They don't have the 3 mana to activate that. Well, they haven't played land for turn. They could have the mana. That'd be rough. That'd be 3 blockers on the board here. We won't be able to break through that. Ooh, the Collision Course on the Raider. I'm going to need to counter that with Spin Out to have lethal here, so I will do that. Makes it only 1 damage. Boom. Raider doesn't die. Bobble the Launcher. Lethal on board. Technically already a lethal on board, but just in case my math is wrong, we'll make it super, super simple. We start round 2 off 1-0. Yeah, solid looking matchup for us. They're a little bit slower here. Some 3-drops and exhaust abilities. A 3-drop that can die to Grim Bauble. That's a really nice sign for us. Don't really feel the need to do much sideboarding here. I like the matchup as it is. Suppose Spectral Interference should be pretty fine here. We could counter the big Chariot vehicle with that. So that could be impressive. Can I view their hand? No, this is like covering their hand. I don't know how I'm supposed to be able to see what's in their hand because they revealed 2 cards to me. There should be some way to do this. There's a 6-drop vehicle that exiles something when it hits the board, and a 5-mana 3/4 flyer that has affinity for artifacts. So yeah, I think Special Interference actually, because it's very good against the vehicle, basically. And this is another matchup. I just don't think Midnight Mangler matters much. We didn't see any 2-mana creatures yet. They probably have some, but that's the only spot where Mangler really matters. So with the information we have right now, it doesn't look like they have a lot that we need to block with the Mangler early. Alright, I like the opening hand here. On the draw with a turn 2 Wreckage Wickerfolk that surveils towards more mana. Once we find that mana, we get to curve out with Gastel Raider and Nimble Thopterist onward from there. Playing an island first there so the arena doesn't just tell my opponent I have a bauble in hand. Okay, that's land 3. We'll get rid of the Optimizer. Just looking for lands. Again, technically Optimizer is one of those cards that can be used as mana, but I have to spend mana to get it on the board in the first place, so it doesn't feel really worth it. This looks really solid for us. They just have a Hole Drifter and a Memory Guardian, so another slower hand for them. Okay, we didn't hit the land here, but the Buccaneer can draw a card, discard a card towards the land. So there was an argument for playing Buccaneer before Gastel Raider if I was incredibly concerned about hitting the 4th land as quickly as possible. But I'm also really concerned about getting Gastel Raider value, and the earlier you do it, the more likely you are to find an instant or sorcery in your opponent's hand. There's the Memory Guardian. We did hit land 4 here, but I think we gotta just be on removal right now. No, I wouldn't mind a Buccaneer into Bauble play here. I'll skip out on a couple points of damage to do that. I could go Flood the Engine, hit for 5, or I can attack with Buccaneer where I either hit for 2 and then Flood the Engine if they don't block. Or the reason we go for it there is that if they do block, it's really good for us. because then I can kill Memory Guardian with just a Grim Bauble. I just activate Buccaneer, it's a 3/4, I finish the Guardian off with the Bauble, and save the Flood the Engine for a rainy day. It didn't work out, we ended up just hitting for 3 less points of damage that turn, but I felt it was worth the risk. Now our opponent has no blocks this turn, regardless. We find our stock up. That's a really nice one, but we kind of just have to play to the board right now. We've got a lot of pressure on our opponent, and if we can just put more power out there, that'll be our best bet. Unless they have, like, a board wipe. Guardian Sunmare, big scary horsey. And a Guidelight Optimizer. That's a couple blockers there, but I can kill one of them with Bauble. Sunmare only blocks a 3/2. They take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They take 8. Because I can also buff the Buccaneer. Yeah, they block a 3/2, take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exact lethal. Oh, no, Hull Drifter saves them. If it's crew 2. It's crew 3. That's brutal. Then they're just dead. If it were crew 2, they could have crewed that and still had 2 blockers up, but this is exactsies, so we will take it. And that is 2-0 for round number 2, leaving us 1-1 on the event so far. Heading into round 3, the final round. All right, here we are for the final round. We're on the draw. We have 1 island and 1 swamp, so 1 source of both colors. So we can't get stuck off of a certain color, but we have a 3-drop, a couple 4-drop, then a 5-drop, and our first draw of the game is another 4-mana play. So we could definitely get stuck on mana here to our detriment, but should we hit some land drops, then we're on the draw to make that more likely. This hand will be really powerful. I really don't think this is a mulligan. Again, both colors, 2 lands and a 2-drop. We're on the draw as well. But sometimes you lose 3 coin flips in a row, and we do not have land 3 on turn 3. Our opponent doesn't either. So each player is in a rough spot here. Luckily, we did find land 3 on turn 4. They have Bauble, Hull Drifter, Spikeshell Harrier, Mutant Surveyor. It is a mirror match, and our Gastel Raider looks horrible here. We saw 1 Locust Spray that it would maybe hit on occasion. So it's kind of just a 3-mana 2/1, it looks like, which does die to the Grim Bauble. I think our hand is favored in this matchup. They don't have any removal to kill the Pact Doll Terrors, and double Pact Doll Terror is ridiculous. With Pact Doll Terror draining them for life, it might also be worth poking them for 1 every turn with Skystreak Engineer. Oh my god, they're drawing so badly right now. They still only have their opening 2 lands in hand. Okay, I think I do just poke for 1 with Skystreak Engineer. We're just so much farther on the aggressive with our opponent having, like, actual factual 0 mana to play with. I guess their Pact Doll Terror blocks are still pretty bad. I mean, obviously losing Pact Doll's Terror's ability would be rough, but we would be killing both of their creatures in that scenario. And if they have some kind of trick to make it better for them, then I can just spin out in response. So I actually think I'm just slamming at this point, trying to kill them before they draw any more lands. I'll take the 2-for-1 trade, but they go for the spin out here. Sure. So, I mean, that would have killed it even if I didn't attack, so that's fine. It's just spin out for Pact Doll Terror. You got it. That works for me. Here's Thopterist. This one's a crew 2, the Midnight Mangler, okay. blue source for our opponent. Tap land, though. It's the Grim Bauble to kill the Thopterist. Yep. We still have the flyer, though. Land 5, Spike Shell Harrier looking decent. Force a recast from our opponent. Like Harrier on the 3-1 Crew the Mangler attack with it here. Just slamming as hard as we can here. Or our opponent has mana for a potential Haunt the Network or anything like that. That could gain some life. They go to 3. Land number 5 has arrived. Spike Shell Harrier, but they're at 3 life with only 2 blockers up, so I'm quite confident they're dead on board. At the very least, they're super dead to any artifact. Yeah, there's the concession from our opponents. We move on to game number 2 of this final round. So another mirror match. They've got a white splash over there, so their deck's going to be a little less consistent, but overall, some baubles, spin outs for good removal, the Harrier, the diversion unit. We saw Wretched Doll, Hole Drifter, and the 3-mana Start Your Engines card. We didn't really see anything that makes me want to change my deck around at all. This time I don't even think we saw anything we really want to cast Spectral Interference on. I mean, we can assume they have some Packed Altars in there in blue-black, in which case it would be pretty good. It is good on Spike Shell Harrier as well. That said, just jamming in with the 3/3 vehicle worked fine. But again, I still feel like Midnight Harrier is one of our first cuts in a lot of these matchups. Doesn't feel much different here. I mean, they have the 2-mana 3/1, they've got the 3-mana 2/3, but that can just spend some mana to get +1/+1, and then our 3/3 blocker doesn't matter there in that position. I don't know. I mean, I do think the Midnight Mangler is a little better on the draw, and we're guaranteed to be on the draw next game since they lost. So I wouldn't mind it. Maybe we cut a Gastel Raider, actually, for a Spectral Interference. We saw no instant sorceries in the opening hand. Did we see any later? We saw a spin out. Gastel Raider might be able to hit a spin out, but that's the only one that we saw. Technically, there's a Locust Spray, but they just cycle that thing. I guess Locust Spray actually does make Gastel Raider a lot worse, right? Because if I Gastel Raider when they have a Locust Spray in hand, they can just spray the Raider, because it only has 1 toughness. Yeah, I'll cut one of these Raiders for the counterspell. I think that's probably fine. Because again, we also just did not see a lot of instants and sorceries. We saw 2 the entire game. One of which is incredibly good against the Raider, because they can just cycle it away or kill the Raider. I don't love this. But considering the alternative that we've seen in like round 1, might keep it anyway. They have decent, some decent cheap creatures we saw. The 2-mana 2/1 flyer, the 2-mana 3/1. So just having the Grim Bauble to kill one of those, Surveil on turn 3, and then play Thopterist is an okay but mediocre start. And obviously any non-land cards are really good draws. Yeah, so we'll just bauble the Wretched Doll. Surveil turn 3 if nothing else, which looks fine. They're just cycling. They're just cycling this turn. Ooh, Stock Up. That's way better. Get a Transit Mage and a Skystreak Engineer, I'm thinking. I just want to play 4 drops next turn. It's possible they don't even have instant sorceries in hand for the Raider. So we're just going to like Pact Altair into Thopterist, into Mage, into another Terror, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm going to take the Engineer. Just beefy flyer, rather than try to manipulate their hand when they might not even have an instant or sorcery. So flood the engine for us. Wow, they're stuck on mana again. Wouldn't be horrible to just immediately flood the engine, but I'm just going to get the Pact Altair going. That leads into a Flood the Engine plus Skystreak Engineer turn. Mana efficient at 5 mana. Oh, there's their own Flood the Engine. Sure. Another Nimble Thopterist. Yeah, keep them off the speed here. There's the Flood the Engine, here's the Engineer. There's their Pact Doll Terror. Which kind of locks in good speed for our opponent. Nothing to Grimbauble right now, sadly. Play some Thopterists, keep getting in there in the sky. Guidelight Synergist is here. Okay. Still got the attack. Cool. Let's exhaust and bobble. This turn there. Transit Mage. I can pick up the Spike Shell here, actually looking the most impressive. As good as Pact Terror is. Or Hole Drifter would look really good here too. I'm gonna go for the Spike Shell. It takes them off max speed, but they can just immediately get it back. Alright, Spin Out is the play. Jam for 4. Pact Altair's back. They're up to max speed again. They've got 1 mana left. Grimbauble, the Transit Mage, or the Flyer here. Or the Thopterist, actually. I forgot about that one. It's all grayed out and tapped. Expect me to keep track of that? Alright, well, we jam in a 4-4 then, and a 1-1 Flyer. I am at the point now, with the amount of mana that I have, that I should do an upkeep Bauble Sack. The only reason not to do it would be if I immediately top deck Haunt the Network, which is still going to be a very strong card without the Baubles on board. Aw, Spike Shell Harrier. Well, now, if they bounce a non-token, there could be a reason to not crack a Bauble, because then I could recast that card, plus play whatever I top deck, but they did not bounce a non-token, so we have nothing to play with all this mana, so we'll crack 1 now and then 1 next turn if I don't know what I'm drawing. Can draw Flood the Engine. As much as I want to use it on Pact Altair, I have to probably use it on Spike Shell Harrier so that my own Spike Shell Harrier can keep getting in. Okay, I think I have to just draw that and then Surveil with Bauble, because I know that I'm going to cast this turn. Which means that if I just did this before drawing the Flood the Engines, I would only Surveil 1 and then still draw the same card. Another Grimbauble. Goodbye, other Thopterist. And the creatures that are dying to Bauble haven't been the most relevant since they can't break through the 3/4 body anyway. So it's like a little annoying, but overall fine. Now we keep getting bobbled. Can I cast a Haunt the Network a single time today? At this rate, it doesn't look like it. But we'll find out. This game's still got legs to it. It could last long enough. They could have the -1/-1 card in hand here. In which case, they basically just 1-for-1 removal. Maximum Overdrive also basically 1-for-1 removal. Trade Overdrive for my Harrier. There's the Surveil. Land to grave. Send in the 4/5. Alright, you got it. It's probably bigger than a 2/2 blocker then, whatever they're playing. Maybe not. Maybe not. Locust Spray the 1/1 Thopter, sure. Take 3. Take 3. Here's a drain. Put them to 5. Sandbagging this land because we do have our Shark thing in our deck. Ooh, another removal spell for our Pact Altair. I actually think our opponent's a little ahead now off of that one. 1 Pact Altair versus a 2/2 and a 1/3 flyer. I would take the Pact Altair almost any day of the week in that race. There's the Shark. Speak of the devil. Engine Rat is actually legit here. So, if I attack both, I lose to removal spell plus play 2 artifacts, or removal spell plus some other way to do 2. They only have 6 mana. They need like a 3 mana removal spell and a 3 mana way to make 2 artifacts. They've only got 1 card in hand, so it'd have to be this is the removal or the 2 artifacts, and they top deck the other part of the puzzle there. I think I have to jam for the extra damage. That makes it more likely for us to find the Engine Rat lethal next turn. And we play it out so that we can attack with the Engine Rat, which also makes it more likely to find lethal next turn. Into our opponent just playing like blocker here or something. It also gives us the option of throwing the Death-Touching Engine Rat in front of the Pact Altair, trying to prevent some kind of lethal play from our opponent. So they have Spike Shell Harrier, which is huge. They gain a life, slow us down, and stop the Engine Rat attack. So I can only hit for 1 here guaranteed, but then I can Engine Rat for another 2. There are no attacks here on the ground, so that's just the play. Cycle that Night Market. Play a land. Crypt Caller Chariot after they played all the cyclers is rough, but it does drain me for a life, but that is not going to be enough. Our opponent scoops them up because they know that I can activate Engine Rat to put them to 3, untap, activate Engine Rat to put them to 1, and then attack with Wicker Folk. Scary matchup there, but we got pretty lucky, and our opponent had some really bad land draws in both of those games. So 1 and 2 in the first round into 4 and 0 in the next 2 for a 2 and 1 finish in this traditional draft. That is not in the money. Traditional drafts are very top heavy in prize out. We are at 1,000 gems and 3 packs as the prize out today. Not the end of the world. You still get a decent little reimbursement there at 2 wins, but 3 wins is insane payout in these traditional drafts. So rough to just immediately lose that first round and have no chance of getting the max prize out. But as I said before, I'm pretty happy with the deck itself. I'm pretty happy with how we played. I just really think we were dramatically outclassed game 1 in every facet of the game, in deck power level, in draws, and in mulligans. So it is what it is. 2 and 1 is the best we are gonna get here today. We'll take another look at the deck. Obviously, we saw actually a lot of the blue-black stuff in action today, especially round 1. That was the full pure blue-black mirror match, but we saw several of the same cards in round 2 and round 3. Our round 2 opponent had a lot of the good blue artifact creature stuff in their deck as well, and round 3 was another mirror match there, where we saw a lot of the baubles, the Pact Altairs, stuff like that. So we really got to show off this kind of archetype this direction that you can take in the format, and I think it's one of the strongest directions. It's really, really good in the long games that can get pretty board stalling. I think this format has a lot of that. So, the MVP of today is the Pack Doll Terror. That was a huge, huge card in every single round for us and our opponents. And as it is just a common, it's a really, really easy card to see quite often in drafts, and definitely you want to know where it's good, when it's good, and why it's good. So a really good card to shout out here, as it's a card you're going to be seeing a lot throughout this whole format, I am sure. But Haunt the Network as well. This card was completely S plus tier bomb ridiculous in our deck and our opponent's decks. And what I mean by that is I didn't draw it a single time, so I didn't get to show off that it would have been an incredibly good draw at any points, but it really, really would have been. And we really saw how strong this was from our opponents. This was just like winning games out of nowhere from our round one opponent. Them having 2 copies of it as well was really, really deadly. So that's another pretty big overperformer. Weirdly enough, not because of how good it played in our deck, but because of how it played in our opponent's deck. We just didn't manage to really cast it once. We might have cast it in one of those losing games. We did have it in hand. We had it in hand in one game where we straight up just like we're getting crushed no matter what. So I might have been wrong. We might have actually cast it once. But we definitely had it played against us a couple times. So yeah, that's blue-black in the format. Really cool, really fun, really powerful archetype. Sad we didn't get to get the 3-win run today, but I'm still pretty happy overall with how we drafted and how we played. We just had a slightly weaker deck here. This was another no rare deck here that actually played pretty well again. Just didn't open up the bomb power here today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in a recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.